Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited that you've joined us for the Aging Experts. We have Trista on. As you know, she was on Thoughtful Thursdays one of the times, but we didn't get through, and we didn't find out from her all the ways that you can encourage yourself to live the second half of your life better than the first. So that's one of the things we'll be talking about today. We'll probably bunny trail, but that's that's okay too, because that seems to be something that really speaks to people. But before I introduce her anymore, she introduces herself. I'm Carol Henderson with Life by Design, and I'm here with my co-host, Miss Barbara Ellison.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Barbara Ellison from the Wellness Playroom. The second half of our life does not have to be kind of one of those things. There are so many options out there. But you know what? Your second half of life also has some different challenges that as we get older. And Trista, I think, is just going to be a great wealth of information because she's traveled a lot. Mm-hmm. And so, Trista, what have been some of the challenges that you've faced as you're getting older and traveling, living in so many different countries, and the things that you have found with your clients? Welcome to the show.
Yes, I was going to say thank you. So thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to join you again. Right. Well, yes. I mean, traveling in the second half of our lives can be very rewarding and very fulfilling and very fun. It's a time that I see a lot of my clients, reaching a stage in their life where they're ready to think more about what they want for themselves. They've spent many, many years putting other people ahead of them, lots of other priorities. And so now they're looking at deciding what they want to do. And of course, travel is one of the options, but it can be overwhelming just deciding, what we want, and whether it's travel or whether it's, starting a business or whether it's, changing city, whatever it is, it can be overwhelming to make a decision. And I see that with, just trying to decide where people want to go, and do they want to go by themselves? And I always tell them, make a list, and there are no wrong choices, right? If you make a list about where you want to go and pick one, and you just decide that that's the right decision, that's going to be the best trip you've ever taken, and you just commit to that and plan accordingly and go off and have the time of your life. Well, and I think it's really important.
And I've noticed with some of my clients, because we do deal a lot with people in the second half of their life. Number one, they need to be healthy enough to travel. They may need to change their nutrition, up their nutrition, something like that. But it's a simple thing. If they've spent their life home taking care of children or taking care of husbands, maybe they're widowed now or divorced, and all of a sudden, instead of having a companion with them all the time, 24/7, they're alone. And I've had people that don't know how to navigate an airport. It's like they don't know the first thing about getting off the plane. Read the signs, it'll tell you where to go. If you get lost, ask for help, and things like that. And it doesn't need to be scary. No. But if they've not done this thing over and over in life where it's repetitive, I mean, the three of us could probably land at any airport in the world and navigate it rather easily, because they're all pretty standard, I mean, bigger and smaller, but still pretty standard. But there are those little glitches that can happen. To all of us.
I've gotten on wrong trains.
Well, I landed in Hong Kong. No. It was in Seoul with a model, a teenager. She was 16, 17, and no one was there to pick us up. and that was probably my worst landing thing. And we could not find we couldn't get a hold of them. I did not have a cell phone for personal number of who was picking us up. And we're just there. And I mean, we're standing there, and I'm not a crier. Okay. I don't cry in situations, but all of a sudden I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden tears start flowing down my face. I wasn't scared. I was just like, oh my, and stuff.
What am I going to do?
Yeah, because we had in there, the language was a major barrier. You know, and it is a big airport, and everything. Finally, they called me, and or got a hold of. I don't even remember how they got a hold of us at the time, but they finally did. But we were like an hour or more after landing that they did not know where we were, or we didn't know where they were, and I'm like, okay, so if we have to get back on the airplane, do I have enough money to get us back on the airplane to go home? And if not, I mean, she was there for like 2 months. I was there for like 3 days. Where do we stay in the meantime? What are we, all of the above. And so, yeah, it can be a little daunting, even if you do it all the time. There can be those glitches. And,
Sure.
I don't know if Trista's run into anything like that, but I have no doubt that she's had 1 or 2 situations with the countries that she tends to frequent.
Yeah, I've had a few run-ins. I remember back when I first started traveling, this is going back many, many years now. I was doing a tour and going into what was Russia, this was like early 90s, like the Soviet Union had just been up, and anyway, I found out that I had applied for my visa, and we were like 2 days away from entering, and I realized I had the wrong dates on the visa.
So what happened? How did you
well, we were we were in Helsinki, and I remember like going to the embassy, and I was very bold and just bulldozed my way in there, and I was like, you have to fix this. I was there for several hours, and I think I had to go out and get some other paperwork and back. Spent the whole day, but I was bound and determined that I was going to get this visa, and somehow they let this crazy lady. But it was tense. But when I first started traveling, my dad told me, and if I remember this correctly, he said, you don't remember the things that went right, but you remember the things that went wrong. And I'm not even sure that's entirely true, but it is like some of these stories that you do remember, and that sort of give you that little bit of an adventure that when they don't go quite as as you had planned. But
it's fun looking back at them.
Yeah. Laughing now.
and I think part of them, they become the life lessons that later on it's like, well, okay, I survived that. So because I survived that, well, you know what? This isn't quite so bad. That's not as bad as this isn't as bad as that was.
Exactly.
And I think that is one of the things that is so fundamental. As we experience things and as we age, because we can look back on some of the things that did happen to us and realize that, oh yeah, that really was a gift in disguise. At the time, not so much.
Right.
But looking back, it's like, oh, that's what I learned from that situation, or that's what I learned from this, or wow, yeah, I survived that, so I can survive this.
One of my favorite movie clips is, I think it was from Steel Magnolias, where she pulls up and she has this big boat of a car, and she's waiting for the parking place, and she's patiently waiting, and these cute little young things pull in with their, I think, Volkswagen,
Oh,
And
yeah,
they they got it, so well, we're young and cute, or something on that basis. And she just proceeds to bash their car into pieces. And she goes,
Remember that? Yes.
older, but I've got good insurance.
Yeah, that's fried green tomatoes. That's
Right.
the
Oh,
movie.
is that fried green
Yeah,
tomatoes?
I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and that's
fantastic.
one of my favorite scenes from a movie,
Yeah,
especially as I've gotten better insurance.
And as we've gotten older. I mean,
I
they're
wasn't gonna say that. I was just gonna say better insurance.
better insurance, exactly.
Yeah. And one of the things I always tell people too is that you can borrow the confidence that you have in other areas of your life and apply it to this area, if it's travel or whatnot. Like, you know, if you're confident and you feel good about your ability to handle situations, like say it's, you know, a baby, teenager, whatever it is, right? Like handling that, then you can apply that confidence and that sense of strength and experience to travel and to, you know, navigating the new experiences. You just borrow that confidence that you can figure it out and you can make your way.
And I think that even applies to things that, because, you know, as we've gotten older, I mean, lots of the days now of staying in the same job for your entire career, they're saying that the average person, men and women, will have 7 different careers. I think it's 6 or 7 different careers in the space of a lifetime. The days of starting with a company and retiring with a gold watch,
Gone.
they're gone. I mean, when you think about it, when you hear some of the things where the CEOs, longtime CEOs, are now out the door, it's like there's no job security.
Right.
So how do we? And I think that's one of the learning curves that we can have, that we can look back on and go, yeah, you know what? I can handle this.
Exactly.
So why not as we get older?
Yeah. And maybe you want to start out, like if, you know, you want to start out with a few smaller trips, a day trip, a couple of hours down the road, right? And sort of build up to taking that flight to Europe or to Australia, wherever you want to go. Like you don't have to, you know, go off for 3 weeks or 6 weeks. Your first go, you can just, you know, take steps, micro steps, baby steps, next steps, just get comfortable and build into it and get your
here's
feet wet.
you that went to completely different countries and stayed.
But find a running partner if possible, especially if you're starting this travel the second half of life. Because it is more fun with a friend. And yet at this age, you're less worried about meeting new people. Although if you are one who is easily scammed, be careful. Because, you know, you could have somebody befriend you in an airport that could be not somebody you want to be a friend of.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, that's something that could happen here, you know, or
exactly.
Anywhere, right? Like it's just, you know, you don't want to.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and all those phone scams and yeah.
And do they not just find new ways every day?
Yeah, it's like with me, I was almost the victim of a gift card scam, and luckily caught it at the last minute and went, oh brother, I would have lost thousands of dollars.
Well, I had a friend and she's well aware and stuff, and you know, they normally will say, can you give me the last 3 numbers of your credit card or whatever? Well, those are easily accessible, but the scammers called early in the morning, said, this is Amarillo National Bank or something like that. Would you please verify the first 4 numbers of your card? Well, she's half asleep, and she just pulled it out and gave it to him. And so she did have to get a hold of the bank and get, and it was as she hung up, she thought, wait a minute, what did I just do? And so she was able to fix it. But, there's so many they must have classes on how to defraud.
On how to scam people.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And you look back on some of them, and that's one of the things that why I think that Carol and I do part of this is the shows. Like a friend of mine, she was part of a romance scam. 2.5 years worth. Millions of dollars involved. But it was a romance scam. And because it plays as we age, we have more emotions, especially if we're single. And oh wow, it's like that totally made me aware. And we were so grateful that when she started sharing it, because once she started sharing it, she was absolutely amazed at how many people, men and women, were victims of it. And that's why it's so important to get messages out there that there are things that are wonderful about aging, but there's some things that maybe not be quite so good about aging, and things that we can fall victim to, or things that we can overcome. There's two sides of all of it.
Exactly. And back in the day, everything was face to face. So if some guy came along is trying to horn in and do something like that, your friends would be around, supposedly, and for the most part, to see this happening. All of a sudden, you're not showing up for lunches with the girls because you've got a new guy, those kind of things. And so there was a protection there. But now with all this, technology's great. Zoom is wonderful. But with all this stuff out there, it can happen and no one knows because you're in your basement on Zoom. And so no one knows if you don't open up and talk. So if you are in the second half of life, speak up, tell your friends, share what's going on. If it's a romance in your life, share it. And listen, if their hackles go up, listen, because God may be telling them for your protection, because you are in the emotion of it. And I know this is not even where we were going to begin with, but do you cover this kind of stuff when you work with your clients?
Sometimes. I mean, there are a lot of concerns, and all the fear is very natural, right? The brain tends to go to all the problems, all the negativities. There's the fear of the unknown, the fear of change. So all sorts of issues come up that people are not quite sure how to navigate. And typically what I tell them is the fear is normal, right? This is the way our brain is designed. It's designed for safety. It's designed to keep us alive, not for success. And so it's going to offer you all the problems, all the worst case scenarios, right? Very easily. And so, I always recommend that you want to spend just as much time imagining the best case scenarios. So when your brain's offering you, the problems at the airport, getting lost, is redirect it and say, okay, like you could, things could go slowly. Helpful people, you could, have everything work out, no problem, whatever it is, but spend, equal airtime on both cases, the negative and with all of the problems.
Yes. That's what we always say, to circle up, whether it's the words of your mouth or the thoughts of your brain, think on these things, the good. And a friend of mine and Barbara's is always saying that we have, is it 32 trillion cells?
37.2 trillion cells in our body.
all eavesdropping on every thought you have.
They're all, yeah. And it's just so important. And so that's why I think it's just really just, if we can have, our goal is to have one, even if just one person gets one thing out of one show, it's been a successful show. Because there have been times where I have listened to a podcast or a travel show or something and gone, oh, well, that was interesting, but I did learn this. Like I remember one of the ones, and I still remember this, and this was, I'm going to age myself. It was from the Dukes of Hazzard. And they were doing one of their high speed, runs in that orange, Camaro. But one of the tips that I got out of it was that if you accidentally somehow start going down a hill, make sure you go straight down. Don't try to ever turn your wheels, because you go straight down and you have a much better chance of surviving. Like if you get pushed off the road or something into a median, go straight down as opposed to trying to turn. Because if you roll, you're going to be hurt. But if you go straight down, you have the whole front of your car to protect you. And you might get whiplash, but you probably won't die. I was like, oh,
there you go.
I remember that to this day.
Nice. Yeah.
So, even just a funny thing like that, you never know what you're going to learn, and that it has stayed in my brain. And many times when I see a car that has rolled off the road, well, they obviously, and I think to myself, well, they obviously didn't see the episode of Dukes of Hazzard when it says go straight down. Go straight. Don't try to turn your car. Don't roll. And it was just and I still remember that because it was something that I learned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see evidences of it around where people have not done it and rolled. And then they're I mean, they don't make it. So it was just funny. It just a funny remembrance that came to my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved that show. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, John Schneider, I have to admit, he has aged well.
He has aged well, and since his wife's death, he has really come out with some good, positive, godly, suggestions and stuff. That was a very difficult time for him, but he's used his platform to really help people in the second half of their life.
Yeah. Which is really cool. So, but anyway, so yeah, so it's just, I mean, but this is fun. But anytime we can laugh, it's a good thing.
Yes.
True.
So, how do people get a hold of you, Trista? I mean, tell the people how to get a hold of you, because they may want to work with you to better their second half of their life.
Sure. Yeah. So my website is www.Trista Guertin. So it's TristaGuertin.com. And I also have a podcast of my own called This Daring Adventure. So I'm on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon. So you can find me there every Thursday.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on. We so appreciate it. It's so much fun.
It's my pleasure.
If you missed the other episode with Trista on Thoughtful Thursdays, please go check it out.
On YouTube, yeah.
On YouTube or Facebook, either one. So click, like, share, hit the subscribe button, and ring the bell so you'll know when we put up another podcast. So enjoy, and thank y'all so much.
And we'll see you next time. Have a good one.